Hey Veritas, let's chat about Sadie Huff's talk from session 2, that first night of Passion. Her talk about identity felt really relevant and challenging. I think when we talk about our identities, it can just bring up a lot of insecurities and it feels really personal. But she gave us a really good framework for how we should be thinking through our identities. For a lot of us, we're people who say that our primary identity is rooted in God and that God is where we find our worth and value. But our lives may not always look like that. We can be easily swayed by cultural messages that we're taking in, and we can struggle to place our identity in God over other things. When thinking about our identities, we tend to focus just on who we are and what we're going to do with our lives. But Sadie challenges us that we might need to zoom out a little bit, and that if we truly want our identity in God to be where we find our confidence and our worth, then we have to first start with who our God is. And then in light of who he is, then we can know who we are. And then we can know how we're supposed to spend our lives. There's this powerful moment at the end of her talk where she had us all stand up and she's reminding us of who our God is. She's proclaiming these names of God over us, recentering our perspective on who our Creator is. So what she wanted us to see was that when we have a clear picture of who our God is, how he loves us and cares for us, what his plans are for this world, then we can have security in who we are. As college students, there's a lot of voices telling you who to be and where to place your worth. There are endless amounts of things you could place your identity in. And so at some point today, I encourage you to just take some time to reflect and think through these things as we try to sort through what we're learning and what we heard at Passion. So the first thing to think through is, what are the things that you're tempted to put your identity in? Where do you turn to for your worth and value? What cultural messages are you believing about who you are? Maybe for some of you, you're finding your worth and value in your success in school or in your future careers. Maybe for some of you, it's in the approval of your parents or in your dating relationships or your trendiness and relevance on social media. Maybe you feel like your whole identity right now is wrapped up in guilt and shame, or it's wrapped up in your daily changing emotions. Whatever it is for you, name those things that you're tempted to place your identity in more than God. And then secondly, knowing where you're tempted to put your identity, what do you need to remind yourself about who God is? What scripture passage or truth about God do you need to turn to in order to combat these cultural lies about who you are? To remind yourself that he's more than anything else that we're tempted to find our worth in. So maybe you need to remind yourself that God is in control and that he's over all the details of our lives and that he is good and that he's working everything out for our eternal goodness and our eternal glory. Maybe you need to remind yourself that our God is a God of forgiveness. Maybe you need to remind yourself that our God is a God of love. Whatever it is, write that down. What do you need to remind yourself daily about who God is? And then lastly, I invite you to pray. Pray that you would have an awareness of the things that you're tempted to place your identity in, that God would reveal those things in your heart, and then pray that you'd grow in your peace, in a sense of confidence in your identity as a child of God, and that you wouldn't be swayed by cultural narratives, you wouldn't be tempted to believe that placing your worth in other things will bring you happiness and satisfaction, but that your identity would be defined by your Creator because he's the only true, unchanging source for us to find our worth in.